you've got to improve every aspect of your roster. It can't just be the top tier guys, your starting lineup. You got to improve your depth because your depth is going to help push your starting lineup as well. So all bets are off, man. You've got to go and you got to improve. Who should Oklahoma target in the spring portal window? What positions should they go after? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Jay, the transfer portal window has opened. We're more than a day into it now, and it is full of talented players. Like I mentioned, North Carolina defensive end that had 7.5 sacks last year is someone that, hey, if Oklahoma were in on and they were interested in adding him, this is a guy, Bo Atkinson, who is pretty good. But, Jay, where do you think Oklahoma should now focus its efforts after adding Jaden Ott, the running back, and Jake McCullough, the offensive lineman?
To me, if Oklahoma is smart, we're going after the position everybody has been the most concerned about, which is going to be tight end. You're going to get yourself a tight end. You're going to get yourself probably you can get yourself a little bit of linebacker and defensive tackle depth. Maybe go for a kicker. It sounds like kicker has been a concern. I've been seeing some of the local insiders been pointing that out, that they are a little worried about kicker at some point. I just hope we never kick, but whatever, that life happens. You got to kind of put the ball in the air with your foot. So I guess we're going to have to get a kicker or whatnot, even with the young guys and the 5-star Colts guys we have. It doesn't sound like we're prepared for that. We may need to go ahead after it, but you definitely want to get a tight end. You probably want to get one more wide receiver. I know that there was conversations around the wide receiver from Illinois State, which is kind of funny to me because we're going to play them, first week of the season. So it's always interesting when the upcoming competition loses talent and you go snatch it up. It's like, is he going to be like an insider guy? Is he going to be the dude that gives you like the latest on what they're going to do? Hey, Illinois State's going to run a veer and shoot and throw some and throw a couple of end arounds out there at wide receiver. These are the plays to watch for. That's some advanced scouting. But at the same time, from there, I know that we're going to look at a wide receiver. We probably should go ahead, like I say, grab a tight end. I'm curious to see if we do put some pieces out on defense. I'm wondering, we definitely need a veteran corner. That would be awesome to have. Just, I guess you could say insurance for what you're going to see out of Gentry as well as Eli. So the list goes on at what we hope happens. I just don't know what the plan is for Jim Nagy. It sounds like he's got one actually in place. Heck, you got Jaden Ott very quickly. Like, that was one of the faster commitments. I did not see that coming that fast. Same thing with Jake Michaela, which is kind of weird how you pronounce his name now. We got a pronunciation guide, and that threw me off, but whatever. I'm wondering if Oklahoma already has a couple of players that they've identified. But I know those three positions are probably the ones, wide receiver, tight end, and corner, we definitely need our hands on.
Yeah, so the number one defensive back available right now in the transfer portal, Julian Neal. He's a cornerback, was at Fresno State, had originally transferred to Stanford, but they fired their coach. All bets are off. Open season again. That's a player, 6'2", 200. I know you like the size, Jay. That's a guy that Oklahoma could bring in, and he's got some starting experience at the collegiate level. So that's a guy that could matter. You were going to say something?
Oh, no, so yeah, I 100% agree. You definitely need – I would like a big corner just because we're in the SEC. That's one of those – if you get yourself a guy with nice size, there's a very good opportunity that they're going to cause problems, especially if they're fast enough. You can cause problems when it comes to playing some of these SEC teams because, I don't think I understand – the SEC ain't no joke, and we learned that last season.
Yeah, so then as we go to tight end, everybody's favorite tight end prospect from the winter transfer portal window, Tanner Koziol. He originally had gone from Bowling Green to Wisconsin. Well, now he's back in the portal, and that's going to be one of those guys because he had 90-plus catches last season for Bowling Green, he's going to be one of those dudes that's going to be heavily pursued by a lot of people. This is one of those that makes sense to me. I said it a couple weeks ago. If you're going to add a guy, I need a guy with legitimate collegiate production. He's a guy that's got legitimate collegiate production. Will it translate to the SEC? That's going to be the question on everybody's mind when you're making that jump up from the group of 5 to the Power 4. That's going to be the case. At the same time, he's got a really, really good floor to work from. If you can add a guy like him or the Cal tight end, Jack Endries, that's another one that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, the Jack Endries one is interesting. When I saw that he's actually doing a visit to Texas, and we know how desperate they really are for tight ends right now. Yeah, you can go ahead and get them at home and down. They're pretty desperate on that, and especially in Sarkisian's offense, he has a higher level of desperation for really good tight end play in order for that offense to really like hum. And I don't honestly believe that we have an opportunity to steal that away from them because tight ends used so much by them. I don't think tight ends are used enough in the Ben Arbuckle offense to where we would be able to snatch him away from someone like Texas who uses tight ends more often. I get it, Sooner fans. You want a tight end. I am 100% in the same boat. I think that is going to be the most critical component to just this team because we're so used to having good tight end play. But when you're going up against a school who uses tight ends like crazy, and you got an offensive guy who doesn't use tight ends as much, I don't know if you can steal them away. That's where the struggle is going to come in.
Right, and that's going to be the difficult recruiting pitch for any tight end that they go after is, what's the plan? How are you going to use me? Because the Washington State production, the Washington State usage was not great. That doesn't mean that Ben Arbuckle can't figure out a way to use the tight end or doesn't have a plan to use the tight end, because I'm sure he does. It's just a matter of, do I have the guy that I would need to have to be able to use the tight end a lot? That's not been the case. So if they were to get a guy like Tanner Koziol, I'm sure that there would be aspects of the offense that would get him heavily involved in the offense, because we know that they're going to throw the ball a bunch, they're going to run the ball a bunch, but you're going to get a guy like that, you're going to get him involved because he's talented. He's good enough to be involved. It's like if you have a Mark Andrews and your offense doesn't have a way of using a Mark Andrews, then you have a bad offense. That's always my contention when you have really good players but can't figure out how to use them. It's not on the player. That's on the offense. That's on the offensive coordinator. Whether it's the NBA, college basketball, college football, it doesn't matter. If you cannot figure out a way to use really good players in your offense, that's an offensive problem, not a player problem.
Yeah, I agree. You could. There's enough talent at the tight end play to where if you scheme it properly, they're going to make something happen. Again, I know Sooner fans are going to be happy at this, but Bowershot will be really good in this offense. He would probably flourish in this offense because he's not the focal point. You don't want your tight end, especially one that's very inexperienced, to be the dude that has to be the dude. Now that, there's a potential for Giovanni Gibson to come back by week 1, and that to me is probably one of the better things that we've got going on for ourselves. While we also brought in a substantial amount of transfers, not having to force your tight end to be that focal point to me is a saving grace. But at the same time, like you said, you got to be able to scheme one of them open, and you should be able to with no problem with the way that Ben Arbuckle plays the game. So I'm not as stressed when it comes to what we go after in the portal. I truly believe that, you probably can make Huggins or Carson Kent work for you, and that should be strong enough at that spot. But everybody wants that game breaker. They want someone that's going to be the next Mark Andrews. And I'm going to tell y'all now, I don't see it in the portal right now. Unfortunately, we'll have to see what it looks like in the next few weeks, or next few days, because the portal just opened. So we've only got 1 day in. But I think Oklahoma has definitely probably identified who they want.
I don't need a Mark Andrews. I just need like a James Hanna. I need somebody who, when he's throwing the football, is going to take advantage of it. And listen, the Bauer Sharp thing, he was perfectly solid. You did not intend for him to be your number 1 option in the offense. You intended him to be like your 4th or 5th option in the offense last year. And injuries, the way that they worked out, he was your number one option, and he got put in a lot of situations where he was overexposed and overextended. It's the way it goes. Yep. Just find me somebody who, when they get the ball thrown their way, they can catch it and make something happen with it after the catch. That's all I need. I need them to take advantage of the space that's going to be created by guys like Deion Burks and Isaiah Satania. When they're working downfield, that tight end is going to have opportunities over the middle to make plays. When they get those opportunities, make the play, make something happen with the ball. We'll see what they do, man. Oklahoma's going to have options. They're going to be aggressive. We know Jim Nackey and Brent Venables have said publicly that we are going to be aggressive. We're going to improve this roster. So look for them to continue to do that. It may be in the next couple of days. It may take weeks for all of this to really settle and solidify. You have as long as you need now. Once a player's in the portal, you can continue to recruit them until they've signed somewhere else. That there's no cap on that. Even though the portal window will close on the 25th, recruiting will still happen after that date. So We'll see what Oklahoma does. Oklahoma has made some moves on the court, also with their front office staff with Jim Nagy. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.